This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing Social. Delighted to be joined here today down at McGuigan's gym with Shane McGuigan. Happy New Year, Shane. How are you?
Happy New Year, Rob. Yep, good, mate. As always, you've opened it with delighted to be joined by Shane McGuigan.
I'm always delighted to see you, that's why.
Is it? He's come down here enough. I don't think you should be delighted, but no, it's all good, mate. It's all good. Enjoying the start of the new year. Got some things on the horizon, and bloody cold, but it's big space this gym to kind of heat up and keep warm. But we're all just buzzing back in the gym. Yeah.
What did you get up to over Christmas? I saw that you were in Miami.
I went to Miami for 2 weeks. We went out for a little bit of training. There was a fight that we were potentially going to take for Luke, sort of a tick-over fight, with the situation with him being mandatory for the WBC. We were going to take a fight on Dylan White versus Chisora undercard, but it's kind of like it's such an irrelevant fight at this stage of his career. He needs big fights, needs to be put out, especially in like championship rounds and against people that are going to test him and challenge him, and it just didn't materialise. But it was worth it. We went out for a couple of weeks to train. Chris boxed the following weekend in Bournemouth, stopped the guy, and yeah, so it was good. Nice to get a bit of sun and that. So get the old December blues. Thought why not? Went out for a couple of weeks, and then had a nice Christmas. I ate a little bit too much. Actually, it was one of the first Christmases I've had as a coach that I've been off, like as far back as 2011. Like, I've always been working through Christmas, and it was nice. I had no boxes. I had to train over Christmas. I had like a good couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks off, and rested my arms. So it was good fun. Buzzing to get back in here now though, and the stable's flying. Everyone's excited for 2019.
You just mentioned your arms. One of the things that I always like to check in with you, because I'm always very concerned, is your injuries. How are you holding up?
See it. Oh, it's a little click there, but no. Yeah, all good. All good. I see a guy called Ben Carraway, who's one of the top chiropractors and neuromusculoskeletal therapists. He's done fantastic work with George Groves to get him back. To get that shoulder back, even remotely firing for the Callum Smith fight. I mean, just the stringent sort of stuff that he puts us through. I mean, he's phenomenal. He's like he's just thinks so outside the box, and he keeps me in line. I went and got some torture treatment last night from him, and yeah, I mean, the good thing is like once they're in sparring, the pad work minimises. So it's when they're grafting, it's like this sort of time when the dates are quite far out and we're not going to be sparring yet. So I've got four boxes in, and I'm just padding them non-stop all the time, and it's just like it's 4 or 5 boxes, just the sheer volume that you're putting yourself through. But plus I like to train as well. It's not ideal chucking some weight through the elbows, but I'm 30 years young, so I wouldn't like. I just need to get out of it before I start getting like arthritis in my joints.
You mentioned torture treatment. What does that entail? It doesn't sound too fun.
No, like he obviously as a chiropractor, like manipulates a lot of joints, but he also like works on the nerve ending. So it's like really like it's not nice. It's a weird sort of pain. It's not like he's digging into muscle. He's working on nerves, so it feels real tingly and stuff. But that's what I say. It's almost like torture. It's like it's like Chinese torture. So yeah, but it's so beneficial. I mean, like firing up nerves and stuff. I remember when Hay boxed Bellew, and we went out to see a guy called Muller in Germany, and he does this. He does all this sort of, and so does Kevin Lidler. They do this thing called nerve flossing and taking your joints at certain angles and moving the joint around, and it's brilliant. I mean, like it makes you feel so much like lively and awake. It can really mess with your sleep sometimes if you do it quite late on. But it's once you get a couple of people like that on your team that are really like super advanced. I mean, so many times in the past I had a couple of injuries like Frampton from big title fights, and Ben sorted us right out. Or these things always happen. As soon as the body gets leaner, gets closer to a weight, your sparring increases. And you're fine tuning. There's always something that pops out or starts flaring up, and that's when you need a guy like him just to just to make sure keeps you in line, and yeah. Go on.
So that's the 2019 MOT out of the way. Glad to hear that you're certainly on the mend. Let's start with Luke Campbell. Luke came into the Boxing Social HQ last week for the second episode of the Boxing Social podcast. Nice little plug there. Real pleasure to sit down with Luke. One of the things that really struck me throughout, and it's something that I mentioned to you off camera, is kind of Luke Campbell's. You wouldn't think it if you knew him on like a personal level, but he really has like a kind of a steadfast elite mentality. Just tell me a little bit about kind of working with him from the day to day and how he's developed. I mean, because he tells me he's now got it as a professional, and through everything that he's kind of achieved throughout his career, I now believe that.
Yeah. His mindset, working with Luke is brilliant. Like he's had a lot of hurdles that he's had to overcome. Everyone thinks he's the golden boy from the Olympics. He won gold in London. It was like, there was a huge buzz about him. But he was 25 then. He'd stayed on an extra year in the an extra full cycle in the Olympic system, which the likes of George, who's a year younger than him, turned pro. After 2008, for instance, although he didn't go there, but that he was in that cycle. DeGale was in that cycle. All those guys are the same sort of age as Luke Campbell, but he stayed on an extra cycle to get there and make sure that he's, make sure that he got that gold medal. And he came away from it, got huge, he got huge credit for winning the gold, and also that platform that they gave him. Once you're Olympic gold medalist, especially in London, it's huge for him. But he's had a few setbacks. He lost to Mende, he lost to Linares out in California, but it didn't deter him. His mindset is so focused. You could be the same age as him, 31, thinking, go on, pass my best here, or this or that. He's had a couple of losses, and let's just try and cash out. But he's nowhere near that. The mindset of him is, and also his body. He's a young, fresh 31. He's got the athleticism of a 26-year-old, really. Because he doesn't take much punches, but just from his mindset, he's thinking, I've got 4 or 5 years of this game that I'm going to really fulfill my potential, and a couple of losses doesn't make a real blind bit of difference, especially when they're big learning fights for him. And once he's on and once he's firing, he's going to be extremely hard to beat. I'm telling you, like there's not going to be many people in the world that are going to be able to mix with him, and I see it inspiring, and he shocks me every time. Do you know what I mean? He's just getting better. He's getting his distance control was there. He's in the gym with other talents like Josh Taylor and McGregor and George and Chantel and CBS and stuff. He's in a gym, but he's striving to be the best, and that's something that. That's nice to work with. Once everyone's setting a standard and a bar for each other, everyone's trying to rise to that level. So especially young people like Lee will look at Luke and just be like, he's just the intricate little details that he does, and he's listening all the time. He's been in this game since he was 11 years old. He's been in it 20 years, but he still comes and listens and learns and wants to better himself all the time.
Where do we stand with his return to the ring? He's mandatory for the WBC lightweight title, but obviously Mikey Garcia is stepping up to box Errol Spence for the WBC Diamond welterweight title, whatever that is. Where does that leave Luke Campbell? Are you looking at a fight in the interim, or are you going to wait it out for the mandatory slot?
Well, it is a tricky one. We got a couple of options. We're probably going to be fighting late February, early March, and it will probably be like one more fight before we fight for a world title. Even though we want to make sure that we get it as soon as possible. The WBC they're honouring Mikey Garcia, and we've got to respect that. There would have been other options. We could have tried to go down the IBF. Richard Commey's fighting the Russian. For the vacant belt. You got Lomachenko, he's obviously up there. You got Kroller, who's mandatory for that title. So there's a couple of fights out there that or routes out there that we could have took. But we stuck with the WBC, and I think we just got to honour that. We've got to work towards to fight for that title. I wouldn't be surprised if Mikey Garcia vacates like the day that he boxes Errol Spence, and he will be champion in emeritus or recess, whichever one to say. So, and with that, he might drop back down to 135 if we pick up a vacant title. You've got the likes of Javier Fortuna that's in and around the mix. You've got you never know who the WBC are going to mandate us to box, but we're the main challenger. We're the number one for Mikey Garcia. Obviously, he's chose to move up 2 weight divisions. So for us, it's a waiting game, and it's tough because he's 31. I want to get him moving now, but all good things you got to wait for sometimes. And I think realistically, by the summer we'll be fighting for a world title. Hopefully, even before that, maybe early summer. So, but we will be boxing in March, and we'll keep the training camp going straight through, and wait for that shot. But once we get a world title around his waist, one, that's going to be a huge goal for him to have achieved, and two, there's huge fights out there, absolutely massive fights. Personally, I think Garcia will go back down to 140. I could see him boxing someone like Manny Pacquiao at 140, and or even the winner of the WBSS. So that will kind of leave us in the mix with the likes of Linares just got beaten. It would have been great to have avenged that loss, but yeah, there's some huge fights out there, and obviously the big one out there will be Lomachenko in time.
Well, we kind of mentioned it, so while we're hovering around the subject, let's talk about Mikey Garcia versus Errol Spence. Mikey Garcia not jumping up quite 2 weights because he has boxed and won world titles at 140, but he's stepping up to face arguably the consensus #1 welterweight in the world, big welterweight like Errol Spence. Can he pull it off?
My gut says no, to be honest. But then again, he's got a fantastic chin. He's got the speed. He's physically he's physically strong, but I think Spence will just be too much for him. But you never know. I think Errol Spence he's so technically sound. He's not that quick though. He's very defensively sound. His timing's amazing. Garcia's got fantastic timing. They might cancel each other out in a lot of. I don't think it will be like an electric fight. I think it will be I think Spence will sort of hit him and maybe stun him or get his respect, and then just dominate the rounds. And I can see Spence winning on points, but and I just think that the thing that will let Mikey Garcia down is just his sheer size. I mean, he's like 5'7", 5'6". He's a very small guy, thick, big head, like a solid frame on him, but he's not welterweight. His best days will be at lightweight 140. He's done a hell of a lot already. He's just challenging to be great, and you've got to respect that.
Moving away from that, we'll move up one division. Josh Taylor through to the semi-finals of the World Boxing Super Series. Well, I was going up one division from Campbell, you see. I have only had one cup of coffee today, so do forgive me anyway. What's going on with Josh Taylor? See that he's been out and about. He told me he was in a cabin over Christmas, which had the mental imagery going a little bit, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. I think he's coming down. I think he might be coming down today or tomorrow. Him and his missus Daniela, they're gonna. I mean, Josh's got a flat down here, but I think she's gonna come down to work here as well. So he knows his next couple of years of his career are like, it's vital for him to give it everything. And as much as he's a home bird, he likes to go home up to Scotland. He's got all his mates up there. He likes to have a good time. And I think he's going to really come down here and knuckle down and give it his all. He's fighting Baranchek for the IBF, but also for the semi-finals of the WBSS. It's one step closer to unifying a division and also walking away with the Muhammad Ali Trophy. Don't know when that fight's gonna happen though. I mean, we're sitting and waiting. I personally don't think it will happen until April, May potentially, which isn't ideal. But at the same time, we just got to respect it and honour it and train away. This is a great opportunity for Josh Taylor to be involved in it, and we wanted 3 fights within a short time frame, 12 months pretty much. But I don't know how we're going to get that sorted if it's not until April, May. But all will be revealed soon. The most important thing is that we're fighting for a world title. That's the most important thing. We gave up our option to fight for the WBC. Would have been a tricky situation anyway, with Top Rank having his name's Ramirez, yeah, and we gave up that option to fight for in the WBSS, but hopefully we can get that news soon and just sort of train for that fight day. But I have no doubt that he's gonna win this whole tournament, and also when he comes out of it, you've got the likes of Hooker, and I want to keep him at 140 for the foreseeable future because I feel like that's his best weight division. In time there'll be huge opportunities to go up to 147, but it has to be right. He's thickening up, but he's a late bloomer. He was 28 on January the 2nd, so. But he's so young, so fresh. Like he's got his speed. It's a bit like Luke. He's got the speed and that youth of someone like 24, 25. So, this next couple of years of his career are vital. But also, it's going to make him into being a real legend of Scottish boxing. I think he'll go down as one of the greats.
Just kind of going back to what I said before, I mentioned it in jest, but one of the things he did say to me, I'll give you the edited version. He said he can't wait to come back to the gym and start punching things. Yeah. Josh is somebody who, from knowing him in the past and speaking to you, he does get itchy knuckles. He does want to get back in the gym fairly quickly. Going into the Postal fight, with kind of, he admitted afterwards that he kind of let things get to him a little bit more. Now there's a delay before the Baranchik fight. Is there any part of you that's not worried but kind of mindful of the fact that he's going to be out of the ring for a period of time and going into such a big fight?
No, because I think the Postal fight he knew exactly what was on the horizon. He knew what was the next sort of 12 months had for him. He was going to go in the WBSS. He was going to. Sorry, my dog's just walking over. He knew, he knew he was going to be in the WBSS. He knew how much money was on the line. All these things that were playing on his mind, and he had to get past a tricky, awkward guy like Victor Postal, who is a really underrated fighter. He didn't, Crawford did a complete number on him, but he still had a lot left. And he trained. He said that was the best camp I'd ever had, and I was in the best shape of my life. So you beat the best version of me. I really believe that Victor Postal. That was the case of Victor Postal. He was the best he'd ever been. So, and Taylor sort of didn't look his best. His head wasn't quite in the right frame of mind for the whole training camp. And I just think it was just that next step. He was so used to like headlining on Channel 5, a little bit of pressure, but whether it was but then the big money fights come around the corner. That's changed a lot of people. It's not necessarily like it's the same. It's the same as always. It's the same. You're just boxing. You've got 8-ounce gloves on. You do exactly the same training camp. You do all the same preparations, but it just money comes up, and obviously titles get involved. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's harder fights. It's just more pressure.
How tough a fight is Baranchik for Taylor? So we've been gate crashed here by Titan McGuigan. Hello, Titan. How difficult a fight is Baranchik?
Yeah, it's a tough fight. He's very small and he's very strong. It's gonna be hard to get sparring for a guy like him because he's just coming in. He's quite a dirty fighter as well. Chucks his head down and just lets his hands go. You watch the Yiggit fight, but then again, if Josh Taylor was hitting him with the shots that Anthony Yiggit was hitting him with, there's no doubt about it, he'd be dropping him. I think it's going to be an exciting fight. I think it's going to be a tough fight whilst it lasts, but I think Taylor will knock him out. He'll walk him onto shots and just meet him. The thing is Josh loves it when people come to him. He loves it. He loves engaging with guys and fighting in close quarters with them. Because he's a big guy, everyone thinks he's going to go away, but he sort of brings himself down to their height, and because of the speed and that sharpness, he beats them to the punch every time. It's a bit, it's a bit like Lee McGregor, same thing. He's a big guy but likes to fight in close.
What can you tell me, if anything, about the kind of rumours going around about the World Boxing Super Series? I know they surfaced a couple of months ago where people weren't sure as to whether or not the series would be carrying on. There were some rumours about fighters not being paid. Just wondered if you could shed any light on that. We've
been paid, and I didn't really read too much. I didn't really read a lot about the rumours, but I think the TV would have been a big issue with them. The fact that it was streamed. I don't know if the investors would have got spooked by the fact that it wasn't being televised, but from I think from what happened in the first series, like with the super middleweights and cruiserweights, you couldn't have done it much better. I mean, Usyk just got nominated Fighter of the Year off the achievements that he won in the WBSS, and Callum Smith obviously beat George in the final, but it was you had some great fights. You had GROVES, you had and obviously Smith versus George at the end as well. So there's a couple of great fights there for us, and I know the likes of Saudi, they put up a lot of money, and also it's the finals where what was it? It was Russia, wasn't it, for the final of the cruiserweight. So it's such a big event. That's what they're trying to build. They're trying to build a big event, so big cities will buy that event in, and it worked the first time. I don't see why it shouldn't work on the second one. So risky move to have brought in a third weight division, especially a cruiserweights. That's the only thing I think that they could have done wrong is they brought in a cruiserweight division again, but it's the Muhammad Ali trophy where you're supposed to win all the belts and find out who's the best in the division is. They found that out with the super middleweights, they found that out with the cruiserweights, and now they're going to find it out with the bantamweights and the light welterweights. But are they going to find it out with the cruiserweights? There's not world titles on the line. Maybe Usyk will vacate. I think he's moving up to heavyweight. By the time he vacates, by the time the final comes around, all the belts might be back on the line. But there's still a good lineup. It's just from a fan standpoint and maybe from an investment standpoint, you want to see all the titles on the line.
Kind of leads us in nicely to my next topic. George Groves, World Boxing Super Series, as you've just mentioned, he's in the gym today. First time I've seen George in a while. How is he? I've asked him myself, but why don't you tell me how he is?
He's great. Yeah, he's had a good Christmas. He's had a good feed up. He's not anywhere near super middleweight, but I think he's enjoyed the time off. He's enjoyed reflecting, with his family and just switching off for boxing. He's been pro since he was 20 years of age, and he's 30, but he's just been non-stop fighting. I mean, I think the first year that we had together, I think he boxed 4 times, but the next fight was it was 4 times, but still four 12-round fights. That's a lot in 1 year. And then he had the upset with Gutneck, that kind of played on his mind. Then he had the Chudinov fight, and then won a world title, went straight into the Super Series and dislocated his shoulder. We had to do so much rehabilitation for that. It just fries your brain. It makes you just there's dates on the horizon, but there's so much work that has to go into those title fights. And halfway through that camp, he had a little baby. Him and his wife, a little baby. So he's just taking some time off, spending some time with his kids and his wife Sophie. So they've earned that break, and they've earned that rest from boxing. It's back in the gym now, just doing some conditioning. So I'll let George sort of discuss his future plans, but I think it was great for him just to have a bit of a breather from it and reflect on what he wants in the next stage of his life and in the next stage of his career, seeing what he wants to do.
It sounds like, from what you're saying, potentially an announcement whether George will continue to box or not is potentially on the horizon.
Yeah, I think that's going to be very, very soon. He's going to sit down with his he's going to sit down with his promoters and his team and stuff, and make it, and discuss the options. But me and him have had the chats and stuff, and he's still he's still processing it.
Talk to me a little bit, if you can, about your relationship with George. You mentioned that George and his partner had a baby during the camp. That's your godchild, right? Is that right?
It's my godchild, yeah. So I was named godfather. So with the christening there on Sunday, which was really nice. Obviously my relationship with George is something that, a lot has changed in my life personally in the last couple of years. I've had fighters that were around me for 8 years and I've left without a lot of discussion, and there's just this boxing business is like a revolving door. You take people in, and as a coach you're looking for their best interests, and you're investing your time and your emotions and making sure that they're okay. It's a very selfless sort of job, and you've got to look out for people all the time. But George has been through he's been through it. He's had to pick himself up from leaving a stable like mine with Booth, and he's picked himself up, and he's built something himself. He's fallen again, he's come back here. So I think what me and George have is we've got an understanding about this business and how muggy it is, how ruthless it is, and we've got an understanding about it. We're not pessimistic towards boxing. It's just we've got our views, and we understand that there's a life outside of it, and that's the most important thing. And I go out and run with George. When he was boxing, I'd always go out and run with him. It's something I hadn't done since I had Carl in the camp. I used to go running with Carl all the time because he was my only fighter. And then since I started working with George again, I started taking him out on runs. But we never talked about boxing. We talked about just trivial crap. Do you know what I mean? We got a friendship that isn't really fighter and coach. It's very similar ages. We've experienced a hell of a lot for 30 years of age, both of us, and we're just good mates. So I don't personally. I just want the best for him, and I want the best for all my fighters. But we definitely is someone that I can disconnect from boxing when I chat to him. Most people, especially when they're your boxers, they want to talk about how they sparred. They want to talk about, and that's effectively the job. You're talking about that. But I had to draw that out of George. He wanted to talk about, just how's your day been, mate? What have you got to, just normal stuff. Series and all that sort of crap. Or we'll talk about other sort of quizzes and just geographical silly nonsense or conspiracy theories.
You mentioned conspiracy theories.
I heard about
Luke Campbell was in the studio the other day talking about the JFK conspiracy. Look on your face kind of says 1,000 words, but did you watch it? What was your thoughts on that?
I didn't watch it yet, but I wouldn't believe a word that comes out of Luke Campbell's mouth, especially with conspiracy theories. Him and Taylor are the worst. Taylor thinks the world's flat.
He's not a flat earther.
He's a flat earther. Honestly, he's a flat earther, and he genuinely believes it. It's like there's some dodgy conspiracy theories around this gym, but I'm not. George's father-in-law is actually one of the worst. So his wife's dad's he's one of the worst when it comes to conspiracy theories. He's got some crazy stuff going on, but all the government running everything and all that sort of malarkey. So But yeah, I didn't watch it, but Campbell's got his views. He's probably watched some documentary somewhere and picked up on it.
Better left there. You better watch it though. Anyway, moving on. While we're on the subject of George Groves, 2 of his ex-opponents face off in a few weeks' time. James DeGale versus Chris Eubank Jr. for the IBO super middleweight title. Just your thoughts on that fight?
So, it's a good one, isn't it? I personally think Eubank's going to beat him. And you don't know. I mean, I didn't watch Eubank in Saudi when he boxed in the undercard of George, but apparently he didn't look his best. But the thing is he's done that a lot. You know, he's sort of messed about with lower level fighters, and everyone goes, "What's he doing?" But he doesn't like to give away a lot. He's quite a shrewd bloke. I think his work rate. James DeGale doesn't punch as hard as George Groves. The one thing that dictated the pace of that fight was George Groves' jab and his punching power. It wasn't his movement. DeGale's going to try and move a little bit more. Personally, I think so. He'll try and punch in combination, and you can't meet a good combination puncher head on. Like Eubank's a combination puncher. DeGale shouldn't try and meet him with combinations. He should just try and pick him off for singles and not overly sort of move around. But I just think the Achilles heel for Chris Eubank is power. You know, if you're really heavy-handed and you can stun him, he's not going to hit. He's not going to walk you down and throw at the same pace that he would be able to if you were slightly more feather-fisted. And I just think a few years ago I think DeGale would have beat him, but I think James is on the slide, and I'm just going to favour Eubank on that one. I wouldn't be surprised if DeGale beats him on points, but actually, I personally think Eubank will beat him. But he might even stop him later on.
I was at the press conference a couple of weeks ago, and there was an announcement that Eubank Jr. will be working with Nate Vasquez, who's somebody I'm not tremendously familiar with, but that's going to be who's training him for the fight based out of Las Vegas. Famously or infamously been kind of self-trained throughout his career and made no real bones about it. Do you think it's too late in the day for him to change?
Yeah, maybe not change. I think maybe he needs a trainer underneath him, but I don't believe he should be going to the Mayweather gym. They're counter-punchers. Chris Eubank Jr. isn't a counter-puncher. He's not got the amateur pedigree that these guys have, like the James DeGales. He needs to be working on his. He needs to be throwing more jabs. He needs to be working on his feet, how to bring his feet in with him. Because against George, he was leaving his legs behind him, because he was trying to load up with hooks, and with that, he was leaving his legs behind. He should have been tracking him in with double jabs, moving his head, jab, then letting his combinations go when he was closer to the ropes. But George is also really good at negating that with someone, because I brought in a guy called Anthony Sims Jr. who was doing the sparring for it. I brought in really good quality sparring, so he had a great camp for it. I think Ronnie Davies knows him. I think he knows a mindset. I also think Chris Eubank Jr. He knows himself. Like boxers, especially when they're 29, 30 years of age, they know what they're doing. They know what works and they know what doesn't. And you can't reinvent the wheel at that age. You can't say, all right, sit back on that back foot, drop your shoulder, and come back with like little sneaky uppercuts. And it's not going to work. He needs someone that's going to get him extremely fit, that's going to motivate him, and he's going to listen to and say, you're losing that round. You've lost it. Oh, but I thought, no, you've lost the round. The thing that you need to do is if you just filled those spaces with jabs, you'd have won that round. You know what I mean? And then next round you have to just motivate him, and work on pace, because he's a nutritional boxer. He's not going to be a guy that's going to be, he's got a great engine, he's got a good chin, he lacks footwork, but still, it's enough to win a world title, and a proper one. And I think he needs to go out there and do exactly what he was doing before. Have someone that can tell him when he's winning and losing rounds, and not switch off. Keeping it much more consistent and using his jab. It's not rocket science. It's just being able to get that message to him, especially in a crisis.
The way you're talking, Shane, it's got me wondering, would you ever train Chris Eubank Jr. if he asked?
Never say never, but I don't think I would. No.
I'll just leave that there. It's probably a question for George, really. But who do you think? But George would train him. No, that's not what I'm going to ask you anyway.
He wouldn't want to work with me, and it was a
PE teacher.
No, but listen, it done a lot of buys, and even though it wasn't pay-per-view incentivized from us both sides, it did a lot of buys. It created a lot of hype, and it made that win a lot more relevant. The fact that he slagged off George, not just the fact that the dad slagged off me. I don't know what's going on with the father. Yeah, but I don't know if he's still involved. I think he shouldn't leave his dad. I think it's someone that keeps him honest and humble. I just think the dad needs to be able to work with people, not control the show, because he knows that hasn't worked in the past, and if he was able to work with people, he could just be so much better of a fighter. But I think it is potentially too late. There's fights out there he can win. I think he could beat. I think he's got the ability to beat DeGale. Just at this stage, a few years ago, I don't think he would have. And then, Caleb Platz has just won a world title. Personally, think he could beat Caleb Plant. George done some sparring with him in Vegas. He was sharp sort of shooter, but I think that consistent pressure would work well against him. So, and it would be interesting to see him in against stars make fights against the likes of. I think Callum Smith would be too much for him, but I think Benavidez, he's got the potential to beat Benavidez and stuff like that. So there's some big fights out there for him, and he has signed to Al Heyman. So there's some. I think the next couple of years for Eubank will be. It could be really beneficial for him, but then again, if he makes the wrong decision with someone, he could just retire.
I appreciate we're waiting for an announcement, Ari George and his future, but if he does fight again, would the winner of that fight be the only realistic proposition?
I think so. If DeGale won, I think that would be the. If Eubank beats him, is there much point and is there much reason for that? But then again, are you doing it for just for the wrong reasons? Do you know what I mean? It's you got to make sure you're doing in this game. Like, you can't just set your mind on one fight, So it would be. I think that would be the one that would get him up the most. But then so would a chance to avenge the loss against Smith, and Badou Jack's just lost as well. So there's definitely some fights that he can get up for. I don't, the super middleweight division, I don't know if he can make it again personally.
Now, you're one of the only people in boxing. You're probably actually the only person in boxing who I like to ask their opinion on things that have nothing to do with them. It's not, generally speaking, something I like to do, but I like to do it with you, so I'm going to do it. This past weekend, Manny Pacquiao, Adrian Broner. What did you make of the fight? I know you're a big Manny Pacquiao fan.
Yeah. I thought Pacquiao. There was elements of of his old self, but is he 41 now? I think he's 40 or 41. So the best days are definitely behind him. I personally think he should take one more big fight, i.e. Mikey Garcia. That would be a great fight for him. They're both of Heyman. Broner is just. I think he crashed the weight. Looking at the press conferences when they were doing the face-to-face 12 weeks out or something, he must have been 185 pounds. It wouldn't surprise me if he lost 40 pounds to that fight. And that just shows in his work rate. His work rate was right down. He wasn't able to catch him. Especially guys like that as well. Like he's a guy that would, he was a super featherweight that came up, and he had so much success. But he was always the quicker fighter. When you got a guy like Manny Pacquiao, who was a flyweight that came up to bantam, super bantam. You can't match him for speed. So it was the wrong fight for Broner. But two guys past their best.
What did you make of Broner's post-fight antics, claiming that he was robbed and he won the fight?
so disrespectful. But he knew he was on pay-per-view. He knows that is his last opportunity to be on pay-per-view, or even in a big fight. He'll still get another opportunity because of the way he talks, and that's what he did. That's what he did it for. It's just him trying to keep himself relevant. So
Josh Taylor's actually mentioned to me a couple of times he wouldn't mind fighting Adrian Broner.
Josh Taylor would stop him, 100%. He'd stop Adrian Broner, because you couldn't get away from them flurries. Hell no. I mean, like, Pacquiao was trying to hit him from middle distance, quite far out. Whereas Taylor he'll start at middle distance and he'll walk right over him and beat him up. So he would never take that fight though, Broner. He'd like to sort of fight probably try and get his hands on a Danny Garcia or a Keith Thurman or someone like that. Someone that's already a bit more established. So yeah.
Where would you like to see Manny Pacquiao go next? You mentioned kind of the big fight. You mentioned you want to see the Mikey Garcia. Are you interested at all in the Mayweather rematch? That's been heavily rumoured.
I don't think it'll happen. And if it does, like Mayweather, apparently for the McGregor fight, he did no sparring. I don't think his hands can hold up. It always gets to that stage where people just fight and they're too long in the tooth. It was like Roy Jones even fighting Kawasaki. You're looking at a guy I mean, Kawasaki wasn't past it, but Jones was a little bit past his heyday, and you never want to see greats going down a bad route, or even performing not at the best of their ability. So was it Vargas? Who did Vargas fight? I remember Vargas boxed someone, and the two of them were just like so past their best. I think it was Mayorga versus Vargas, they both crashed away, and it was a fight. It was like two great fighters in slow-mo. Yeah, I mean, you're thinking, God, they used to be fantastic, but it's still like they cancelled each other out. They dropped back down to each other's level. But I just think, it's moving on. Those guys are gone. It's the next generation. Yeah, you got the likes of, the AJs of this world. You got the likes of, you got Canelo, who's been around a hell of a long time. Even Golovkin's he's past his best. So it's weird. It's sad for it to see. I'll just kick the camera. Sorry. I knew I was always quite close to kicking it. It's quite sad to see real great fighters, and you just see them. It's like overnight they just go, and you're like, I used to have so much respect for that. And you still got to respect them for the time, but they're boxing. They're boxing for all the wrong reasons. They're boxing to keep themselves relevant. They've got all the money in the world, but they're just trying to keep themselves famous, which is pretty sad.
Another fight that's got absolutely. You can get the ball for Titan. We can't get it. Oh, sorry, Titan. Another fight that has absolutely nothing to do with you, but I want to know about it anyway. Terence Crawford versus Amir Khan, WBO World Welterweight title. That fight was announced last week, I think. I don't know. I'm pretty tired. What do you make of that?
I think I'm going to be one of the only people that think it's a better fight than the Kell Brook fight. You're in boxing to box the best people, and Amir Khan has consistently done that. He's challenged himself. Yeah, he hasn't won, but he still believes in himself. He's consistently challenged the top guys. So got to respect him. You've got to respect him. And if someone won't play ball, you can't keep chasing it. He went off and did something. I just don't think that Kell Brook fight will ever happen. I don't think Amir Khan's going to beat him. I think he'll frustrate him for 5 or 6 rounds and get stopped in about 8, maybe 6, 7, 8. See him sort of running in with a combination and walking onto like a right hook, but. It's a good fight. I think it's a good fight. I think it will be an exciting fight. I think Khan's now back with Virgil Hunter, so that'll be interesting to see. But if you look at like Gamboa versus Crawford, the speed of Gamboa really shocked him, and I think Amir Khan's got that level of speed. I don't think he's as quick as he used to be, but I still think he's got a serious amount of speed, and I still think he'll cause him problems. You look at the Canelo fight as well. He was like on skate electrics running around the ring, pinging him about, and then obviously got walked onto a great shot. But Canelo was far too big for him. Crawford is effectively a lightweight coming up, so I'm more excited about watching that fight than Kell Brook versus Amir Khan personally.
Do you think it's a more winnable fight for Khan, or do you think the Brook fight would have been more winnable?
I think the Brook fight would have been way more winnable. Kell didn't look his best in that last fight, and you know, Amir didn't look his best either in his previous fight. So at least you've got one of the boxers in Terence Crawford that's coming off his best form, and it kind of makes it a much more relevant fight. So, but I think, you know, definitely he had a much better chance of boxing. He'd had a much better chance of beating Kell Brook than Crawford.
You mentioned Khan's reunion with Virgil Hunter. You're somebody who's worked with fighters kind of coming back into camp, or you've joined up with fighters just before big fights, or not just before, but in the build up to big fights. How big of an advantage do you think that will be for Khan compared to him working with Joe Goosen, who personally I thought had the wrong kind of mentality, the wrong kind of game plan and strategy for Khan when he boxed Sammy Vargas? I think personally Virgil Hunter will get him more discipline. You think back to the Collazo fights, Alexander fights, obviously Canelo that you've mentioned. Just wondered your thoughts on that, whether you think that first of all it's a good move, and what you think he'll be able to instill in Khan that perhaps Joe Goosen wouldn't have been able to.
Well, he knows Amir's weaknesses. He'd have been in. The longer people are in camp, the more weaknesses you see, right? And it's just because fighters are really good at disguising, you know, especially when they're at a decent level. They're good at sort of fiddling their way through sparring sessions, or wearing full face guards so they don't get hit with shots and they don't sort of get hurt as much. And you know, when you're a trainer like Goosen, like you're used to training guys that are pressure fighters, and Amir Khan's not a pressure fighter. You know, you've got Virgil Hunter out there that is the most defensively sound. Like he'll work purely on defense, movement, not getting hit with clean shots. It works so well with Andre Ward, who was also a freak of a fighter. You know, great chin, great timing, very strong. But you know, you're in there. I mean, one of these things, it's like when someone goes to another camp, the coach is taking on a fighter that is, especially someone like that, they're a world level fighter. And as I said before, with CRAWFORD-KHAN, do you really know their weaknesses? Because there's not a lot of world class sparring out there. So when you're sparring, you're still better than people. So you're not actually working on things that will present themselves in a fight. So, you know, I remember seeing Scott Quigg go over and start training with Freddie Roach. Joe Gallagher knew Scott Quigg. He knew him inside out. He knew his weak. There was a reason why Quigg didn't put the pressure on against Frampton. It's because he got stunned and hurt. And Gallagher knew that. You know, he obviously thought, okay, after 6 rounds, Frampton's power's dipping a little bit, started pushing the pressure on, tried to stop him late. They got beaten. But, you know, he went so gung-ho and kamikaze with Freddie Roach against a puncher like Valdez, which just, like, his state of his face afterwards, he was like he'd been in a car crash. Like, you know, you need to spend time with a fighter for a long period of time to really kind of get to know their weaknesses, really. And you know, I think changing coaches all the time isn't a good thing. It's not a good thing, because, you know, someone like Canelo could have easily changed away from Eddie Reynoso after he lost to Floyd Mayweather, but he didn't. He stuck with him because Eddie had known him for years and years, and he you know, he knew that he got hit wrong that night. He came up against a guy that was quicker than him, and he couldn't catch him clean. Probably cut far too much weight as well, because the weight was a catch weight. Yeah, he put 20 pounds on apparently, or 18 pounds between weigh-in and fight time. But he can sit there and look at himself and think, I got that wrong. You know, I just didn't get it. You know, it wasn't the coach's fault. He knows me better than anyone. You know, and that showed it's nice to see that, you know. Obviously, if I've inherited fighters, I've started working with fighters that like George, that had done, you know, he'd worked with 2 coaches before. But good thing is I had 4 fights to get to know him before we fought for world titles, and you know, and that's something that you need. I think Virgil Hunter's the perfect person for Khan to be with against Terence Crawford. And that's not disrespecting Goosen, and I don't want to disrespect what I said earlier about Gallagher and Freddie Roach, because Freddie Roach will go down as a much better coach than Joe Gallagher in the history books. But Joe Gallagher knew him more. He knew that individual more, and it takes time for you to start to get to know someone and really see the cracks and see the chinks, and then you got to patch them up and make sure that you can make them, you know, that wall sturdy and defensively sound.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Nice to sit down with you for the first time in 2019. Any other business before we go?
No, I'm massively into chess these days. You need to start getting that Chess Online app. If anyone else wants to get Chess Online, hit me up. I'll put a hashtag up, so you can add my username and get smashed. Yeah, I just basically want. That's my exit route. I'm going to try and retire and become chess world champion. That's it, innit?
Why not? Why not?
Loads of money, innit? Yeah, loads of money, and then go into darts maybe afterwards. See if Eddie will get me a darts contract or something. You know what I mean?
I'm sure he would. Eddie likes you. Shane McGuigan, thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social. Always a pleasure to sit down with you. Look forward to catching up with you soon.
Cheers. Thank you very much, Rob. Boxing Social, as always. Respect.